Good day, everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk, the Todd Worsham Show. Well, today's episode, we're going to kind of go over some weird stuff. My trailer says from Anunnaki to Zen, so let's go. Let's start at the Anunnaki. And today's episode is going to be about Anunnaki and a little bit about Zacharia Sitchin and the whole cuneiform Sumerian tablet, Sumerian creation tablets that were found. I believe there was I think almost 750,000 of them found. I believe, don't quote me on that number, but I know there was a lot of them. Anyway, so he decided to learn cuneiform and start doing the translations. And when he did that, he found out all kinds of cool things, especially on the creation tablets. Now, Zachary was just basically a researcher who was hungry for knowledge and decided to devote his life to ancient archaeology and to the findings of humanity and all that kind of stuff. So he's a really cool person. But anyway, so what does Anunnaki mean? Well, basically it means those who from heaven to earth came. So that was the translation that he came up with. And since the mainstream archaeologists don't really agree with him, they've come up with other meanings, translations. And if you go look it up on Wikipedia or whatever, and some of the colleges, actually, if you read what they say, it's kind of the same thing that Zacharia Sitchin has actually been talking about and been saying. Like on Wikipedia, I believe it says the seed or something like that, and I can't remember what the other version was, but anyway, so basically the seed, which means something was planted, right, and had to come from somewhere. The seed, it grew. So I mean, I actually kind of found it kind of funny because it's different wording, but if you get into the meaning of the words, they're pretty identical. So anyway, it kind of just backs up what he already knew or knows. Well, he passed now. He passed in, I believe, 2010, October 9th, I believe, October 9th, 2010, I believe, is when he passed. He was about 80 years old, around that. Fabulous man. I highly recommend that you go on his website. He's got a website. I believe it's his daughter or some family member keeps up his website, and they're still publishing books from his works and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, it's kind of cool reading. Not saying to believe all this stuff. I'm just saying it's just kind of cool to read, and answers, in my opinion, answers a lot of questions, especially if you're a Christian or Catholic and you believe in God and you believe in the Bible. I believe that you will find that the creation tablet in Genesis are pretty well in line with each other. You can actually take the Genesis section of the Bible and lay it right on top of the creation tablets, and it pretty much says the same thing. Names are a little bit different. Name of the location, instead of Adam and Eve, I think it's Adam, and I can't remember the girl's name, but anyway, in the Garden of Eden, I think it's the Garden of Eden. It's all so familiar and so closely related that it's pretty crazy. And then take into consideration that the cuneiform tablets were written like thousands of years before the Bible. I mean, thousands. So that's kind of pretty cool. So the deeper I got into my research, the deeper I found out that a lot of the events in the Bible are true. Like I can remember going to Sunday school when I was a child, and they're talking about all these giants. I think the Philistines. Well, over the last 100 years, we've actually dug up all kinds of bones from people that were between 7 and 14 feet tall. And the reason why you probably don't hear about these bones is because these bones were found on Indian burial grounds, which is really like head scratching. And I believe it was in the early 1900s, late 1800s. Some of these archaeologists, they actually took the bones to the Smithsonian. Well, over the years, a lot of people have been asking about them. Smithsonian has completely denied all this stuff. Well, I just read an article, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago, where the Smithsonian actually admitted that they gave all the bones back to the Indian tribes so that they could be reburied back where they came from. So that's kind of strange, because first they said they didn't exist, and now all of a sudden they said that they gave them back. Well, how could you give them back if you didn't have them? Just saying, I'm not a conspiracy freak. I'm just translating what I read to you. But at any rate, so that's all pretty cool stuff. And then the other thing I think that blows me away is how people back in the biblical times lived like hundreds of years. So we'll get into that into another episode. I'll break that down, and that'll be some mind-boggling stuff that you probably won't even believe because it's so mind-boggling. But there's so much verbiage and so much scriptures out there around the world that pretty much back up a lot of things that are in the Bible. So it's really cool stuff to learn. One thing I did want to get into is in Genesis, I believe it's the tree of knowledge, and it has the snake wrapped around, I believe it's the female or around the tree, right? And in today's Christianity, the snake is considered the devil, considered, the bad person. Well, it's funny because in the book of Enoch and the book of Enki, which are two books that didn't get put into the Bible, by the way, and if you read them, you'll know why, because it totally proves the whole ancient archaeology or ancient astronauts, or however you want to say it, theories, because it basically says that we were genetically modified to be who we are. Now, exactly who is the Anunnaki? That's what I'm still trying to figure out, and I'll get into that in some later episodes also, because in my dark path of research on this issue, I've come across a lot of whistleblowers lately who used to work for the government and have been actually interviewing one-on-one in real life extraterrestrials. So a lot of them, and I mean a lot of them, not just like one or two, I mean like hundreds. People are coming out of the woodwork and letting people know exactly what they've been doing and what's really going on in the big picture, and where we fit into all this and stuff like that. So that part of my research has kind of confused me on exactly who the Anunnaki is. I believe because the saying is those who from heaven to earth came, that doesn't say a specific race or a specific species. It's basically like an overview of something that came from the sky and came to earth. Doesn't really say what it is or who it is, or doesn't give a specific description. That's one of the parts of my research that's been baffling me. And like I said, the further down the rabbit hole I get, the more I understand that it's not a single species of extraterrestrial. It's probably multiple. I believe at one point it's probably 10, maybe 20 different species. But like I said, we'll get into that in some further episodes down the line, and give you some information that'll probably want to think I'm stupid, but I'm just, translating this, from what I've read and what I know, what I think I know. Anyway, it's pretty cool. So, Nil and Enki, who are they? Well, they were Anunnaki, according to the Sumerian tablets, and they were half-brothers, and I believe their father was Anu, who was, according to Zacharia's Sitchin, was from the planet Nibiru. Now, Nibiru, we have not confirmed nor denied that, although there's all kinds of evidence suggesting that there was another planet in our solar system. That's where we get the asteroid belt from. We know this. But we don't know what happened. According to Zacharia's translations, Nibiru is a planet that comes through our solar system every 3,600 years, which is pretty wild. I think it's called a Zar or Sar. I think it's called a Sar. So one of their years is 3,600 of our years. So that sounds pretty crazy, but I do know that I found a video on YouTube about an astrologist who says that he found, what Popular Mechanics and all these magazines were calling Planet X. He says he's found it. He can't prove it yet because it's too far out. But by following it and by looking at it, he's proven that it has a gravitational pull. That's pretty interesting. And it is headed back into our solar system. Won't be here in our lifetime, I don't believe. But they're sure it's there, but they just can't positively see it yet. So I think it's kind of interesting. And so Anu and Enki were brothers. They were sent here to, according to Zachary, they were sent here to mine gold for Nibiru. This is the story. Well, the Anunnaki had, I don't know if you want to call them a race of people. I guess it was kind of like slavery. They're called the Igigi, and they brought the Igigi with them to mine the gold. Well, after so many years of being on Earth, because this is how it's explained, I'm not saying I'm believing all this, I'm just telling you what it says, that the gravitational pull on their planet compared to ours, planet Earth has a higher gravitational pull. And that's one reason why they're taller. That's one reason why they're 7 to 14 feet tall, whatever. So the gravitational pull is greater here, which wreaked havoc on their bodies, and they couldn't handle it anymore. So Enki had this great idea, well actually both of them, had this great idea that they would take some of the humanoids that were already on this planet, and they would genetically modify them to be workers. So if you think about it, the true story's true. The whole humanity began in slavery. So it's pretty interesting. Kind of gets rid of all this black-white slavery crap that's going around right now, killing our country. But anyway, so as the genetics was happening, which by the way was Enki's sister, she was a geneticist, and this all sounds crazy, but it's all in the tablets. It's all been translated. It's pretty crazy. So she designed and made us, and that's where we came up. That's where we come up with Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were the first couple that were able to procreate, and that's why they call them the first, because before then, most of the humans that they had designed could not procreate. They could not reproduce. But they needed more and more workers, so they did the genetics to let them procreate. Well, after a while, good old humans, we're like bunny rabbits. We started multiplying, and fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, when they created us, they used a lot of their own DNA. Well, the Anunnaki themselves were not the greatest humanoids. They too had their issues like we do. In fact, that's where we get a lot of our issues from, is from our DNA, because like us, they fought, they had wars, they conflicted. So that's basically where we get the genes from, is from them, and that's basically why we are who we are, is because of them. And as the humanoid Homo sapien population started growing, they became more and more aware of what and who they were, and they decided to rebel, and they decided to move on. And some of the Homo sapiens moved away from Egypt, or actually it was Iraq. and I believe in South Africa or all through Africa. So anyway, they started migrating all over the place and started getting out of control. Then came the fighting and all that kind of stuff. So, not saying I believe all this stuff, I'm just telling you. But that's where the deluge comes in. So Enlil, who never really liked the idea of doing this in the first place, decided that he was going to wipe out all humanity. All of it. Because at this point, humans were pretty tall. I believe they were probably between 7 and 10 feet tall because of the gene splicing. That's where you get the Philistines from the Bible. And that's why you get a lot of these megaliths around the world where you look at them and you think, Jesus, those steps are for people that are like 15 feet tall. Yep, they are. Because why? Because they were. So it's pretty interesting. I mean, if you start putting all the little pieces of the puzzle together, it really starts adding up. With archaeology that we're finding all over the world, from the pieces from India, Africa, the Middle East, the Americas, especially South America, you start putting all these pieces together, and it actually starts making a pretty good picture. And that's why I'm not saying that I believe everything wholeheartedly. Excuse me. You have to excuse me. I'm chasing a cough for the last few days. But anyway, but I do believe that there's some truth in all these stories. And it's really kind of cool because we may actually start to understand who we are and why we're here. So the questions are going to be, where are we going? So anyway, to get back to the Inki story. So Inki and his sister were the ones who made us, genetically designed us to do the work. And Inki and his sister considered us his children, which is in the Bible. Because why? Because he created us. Now, I know some people who are Christians and all that stuff are going to question me and say, well, no, God created us. Well, I'm not debating that. I'm not debating anything, actually. What I'm saying is yes, I believe that God, which by the translation of the Sumerian tablets actually means creation, not creator, which is a huge difference. So yes, I believe that the human species is part of creation. I firmly believe that. And another thing is, for as long as I can remember, there's been a missing link. We just went from this over to this. And there's like nothing in the middle of those two things. It just happened. Well, the Sumerian tablets kind of answer all that. And if you read the book of Inki, it majorly answers it. In fact, if you read the book of Inki, it's on YouTube. I don't know if I go to Google. I don't trust Google on a lot of things. And no, I'm not a conspiracy freak. I fact-check Google from things that I know to be true. And they don't always come up right. So I don't really trust Google 100%. But anyway, but YouTube, there are some independent researchers on there that do this stuff, and you can find some pretty good shows on there that dig into this really deep and explain a lot of things to you. And the book of Enoch, in the book of Inki, I'm sure you've heard of the book of Enoch, the fallen angels, the story of the fallen angels, who actually were Anunnaki. So, but again, I haven't really figured out who the Anunnaki are, because I don't think that they're one single species. I think the word is generic, and I believe it encapsulates multiple species of humanoids and reptilioids and other extraterrestrial beings. But one of the whole purpose of this episode is to open your mind up to realize that we are not alone in this universe. And I believe for us to believe that is completely ignorant and self-serving. It's completely ignorant. Anyway, back to Inky. So I'm all over the place. So Inky and his sister genetically designed us. Took thousands and thousands of years. In fact, this whole process probably took like maybe 400,000 years to happen. So it's a long time, and I know most people can't comprehend that. But anyway, Inky considered himself our keeper. He considered himself, I guess for lack of a better term, our God. He considered us his children. And battle started going on between Enel and Inky. Enel wanted us wiped off the planet. He was tired of us. We were like cockroaches to him. Couldn't stand us. We smelled. We stunk. We were useless. We appropriated like rabbits. So to Enel, we were just vermin. And we were below the standards of the Anunnaki. Well, Inky didn't feel that way. So, and it's in the Bible. It says God spoke to Noah, told Noah what to do, what was going to happen. Further I dig into my research, the more I'm pretty sure that's the Anunnaki. Now, because Inky didn't want his creation destroyed. But at the same time, he knew that things were getting bad. There was too many wars. The people were killing each other. They were fighting each other. There was a lot of bad things going on the planet at that time. So I just actually learned this just recently from one of my whistleblowers, from another show that I watched. But according to this whistleblower, the deluge was purposefully done. And it kind of matches up with the whole Sumerian tablet thing and all that stuff with Enel and Inky, because the extraterrestrials are not allowed to interfere with us directly. Which makes sense. I mean, we've all watched Star Trek, right? You know, the prime directive, don't interfere, right? Well, it's really true. And although I wish they would interfere right now. But anyway, so what Enel did is he very, very secretively took an asteroid out of the asteroid belt and kind of pushed it our direction, which is the one that hit, I believe was it the Yucatan Peninsula? And anyway, caused a great deluge, caused a great flood, and all that kind of stuff. And then how it caused the great flood and everything is just now being learned, that when that asteroid hit the planet, it broke off so much ice from Antarctica that it created a massive flood across the whole region. I mean, all across the Middle East, all pretty much all across the whole planet. It created massive havoc. So we're actually scientifically proving a lot of this stuff, although I don't know why, but the mainstream archaeologists don't want to put all the pieces together to really give a good picture. It's like they deliberately keep pieces out of the puzzle so we can't see the picture. But if you do your own research and you look at some of these things and then start, seeing how they all tie in together, the Bible makes sense. The Sumerian tablets make sense. The Book of Enoch makes total sense. Book of Inky, you got to read that. That's just really good reading. It's pretty wild. So Inky went to Noah, told him to put what we say two of every animal, and build this big ark. Although the Sumerian tablets say something different. It says the seed of everything, which life. So to me that would be DNA. So all you would basically have to do would either be take some hair or saliva, or you could just take bits and pieces of all the animals. You wouldn't actually have to have all the animals, because I mean, if you realistically think about it, how big would the ark have to be to get two of every animal? I mean, that's not even feasible. It'd have to be so. It would have to tower over an aircraft carrier today. And then not only that, what about all the insects and birds and, all of that stuff? I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm just saying that I kind of lean more towards the Sumerian tablets on instead of taking two of each animal, is taking the seed of all life, which I believe is what it says, something like that. But that just makes more sense because it's so much easier to store DNA and so much easier, keep it and then use it later on to restore things and put things back to the way they were before. So, I don't know. Like I said, the research, the further you start doing it, further you go down the hole, the crazier things get. But along the way, you'll start seeing the picture. And the picture that I see is that we were created by, I believe, several different species. And I believe that's why we have different races on our planet, like black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Jewish. To me, that makes more sense, because if it was just one God, why would there be so many different types of DNA and so many different types of people? That just doesn't make any sense, because if, according to the Bible, that God made us in His image, well, think about that. What image is He, or it, or whatever? Is God black? Is God white? Is God, So that gets kind of confusing to me. I know I might sound a little crazy, but I do question like almost everything. And it's not because I question it because I don't believe it. I question things because I want to understand it. It's a big difference. So I take all this research with a major block of salt and try to just keep putting the pieces of the puzzle together, one at a time. And I don't know, no matter how I look at this picture, it just always goes back to the Anunnaki. It goes back to that we were created, and it even tells you in the Bible that. So I guess the big fight would be over what is God, or who is God. And my latest research in the last, I'd say, year or so has pretty much proven to me that God is the universe itself. It's creation itself. It's not a creator, but it's the actual creation. So I don't know. That's what I've come up with. So hopefully I've planted the seed in you, and you can start doing your own research and come up with your own conclusions. And I'd be happy to hear them. I'm open to everything. I don't think that I'm right about everything. I definitely don't think that. But like I said, my research is basically to try to understand things better. And it's not trying to disprove the Bible or disprove, Christianity or Judaism or any of that kind of stuff. And I believe I already said it, but a lot of my research has actually proven the Bible to be way more accurate than I would have ever thought in my lifetime. I cannot believe the accuracy of the Bible. I believe that we should start taking the Bible more literally and really, really start looking at things. And I believe this next decade, especially with the underwater archaeology, we are going to start finding so many unbelievable findings that it's just going to change everything. So, anyway, that's the conclusion of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed my Babylon. We can get into Babylon too. Really awesome place. But anyway, that concludes today's episode. And keep up the search, keep up the knowledge, and ask why.